Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Clement. So today I do have a really interesting topic we're going to be talking about. And the reason I'm picking this topic is because a lot of my clients fall under this bracket here. And this is buying a home in your 30s and your 40s in the greater Toronto area. Now, the reason I'm really talking about this is because I do have a lot of clients that fall under this bracket that I currently work with. I would say my business has about 70% fall under this bracket of in their 30s and in their 40s. But the reason I wanted to get into this here is because a lot of times I do talk to people who are in this age group. I'm in this age group, and sometimes we do feel like you've been left behind, particularly if you want to buy a home in the greater Toronto area. You do feel, am I going to be able to afford a home in this area? Am I going to be able to be in a position to buy? Does it even make sense to buy? And those are some of the questions I really want to answer in here because it's good for you to see the breakdown. So let's go on to the first thing here. So the median age of home buyer in the GTA is now in the 40s. It used to be in the 30s about 10 years ago. So a lot has changed since then. That COVID period really affected the market tremendously in ways we've never seen in years, or pretty much never. We've never seen a market react that way, and that completely readjusted the market significantly moving forward. And we're talking about I remember COVID was in and around that 2020 2021 time there, and yes, so that really affected things. So why it moved up? So obviously prices, higher interest rate, plus the stress test, and that is a longer saving runway. A lot of times the GTA, the best way you could be able to save or accumulate a lot of money is through buying a home, because the economy in Ontario is very much driven by the housing market. So if you are 30 to 39 and feel late, or maybe even closer to, let's say, even 42 there, you literally are in the main buying group today. So the real question is not, am I behind? It's literally, what is my next best move? And if we look at this, how to start building your leverage, because really buying a home is having leverage. Because I talk a lot in my channel about sellers having leverage, because usually you want to understand where the leverage is for you to be able to move really well. So your first home does not need to be that forever home. And the number of buyers have helped buy a home and they think, okay, I'm buying this home and this is the home that I'm going to be in forever. And then literally within 2 to 3 years time, they're reaching out to me and saying, hey, Clement, we're thinking about upsizing, we're thinking about downsizing. So when you're approaching it, just think about getting in and buy what fits your needs for right now. So you're looking at things like location, the safety, transit, the work life, and the budget. The budget obviously is a huge thing, but a lot of these pointers are very important. So the goal starter home really is the principal pay down plus the potential appreciation is equal to your equity. It's very important to understand the kind of neighborhood that will allow you to have really good equity. When it comes to the principal down payment, I do feel some people want to just completely put a lot of down payment down so that they don't have that huge monthly payment, which I understand. But sometimes you don't want to be completely cash poor because you just want to own a home, and the breakdown of the numbers will make sense. So the equity becomes the down payment for the next move. So when you're purchasing a home, I always have this rule of thumb, and I learned this from Condo. For you to know you had a good investment, you want to double the down payment you put in. So if you bought a home and you put 100,000, you want to really pay attention on this 100,000 and let it double to 200,000. So how does it double to 200,000? It's obviously through appreciation. Is the only way that's going to happen. Now, are you buying a property that would appreciate within 200,000 within that 3 to 5 years? I'm going to talk about this year later on, but are you buying something that was going to appreciate within that 3 to 5 year time? So the reason I'm saying the Pinterest type of perfection, a lot of times when a lot of buyers are going in to look at properties, they usually look for that perfect, like, you saw something on Instagram and you feel, okay, I need to find something that looks exactly like this type of layout. when you're coming in the first time, just really approach this as the home that's going to get you to that next dream home per se. It might actually be your third home that's going to be your dream house. A lot of times it's been very, very, I haven't actually experienced this, to be honest, where a client has bought a home for the first time and that's their forever home. I still haven't come across that yet. So a lot of times your first home, eventually you'll get out of it. I always say it's usually within that. I know the oldest it's around 7 years, but I find it to be the sweet spot to be around 3 to 5 years is where a lot of people now start thinking about moving to another home, you know. So what is the kind of game plan that I typically have when people are coming in? So step one, it's a quick strategic call that I always have with you. And in this call, we go through your goals, your timeline, your lifestyle, and your constraints. And in this call, a lot of times we could do it over the phone, but for the most part, I always love doing it either in person. I mean, it's a call. But if we could do it in person, I call it a buyer consultation, or we can do it on Zoom. For the most part, when I do it on Zoom, it's almost going to be something similar like this. And we go through all of this, your goals, your timeline, your lifestyle, and we break it down so we can get into the mortgage pre-approval, which is step 2, and the rate hold, and because you don't want to guess your budget. This is the worst thing. You've done your search online, and I just had a consultation actually 2 weeks ago, and the buyers that I was talking to, they came to me through one of the properties that I have in the market, and they were interested in it, and they were first-time home buyers. I had a conversation with them over the phone, and I could clearly hear they were not in a position to start looking at homes just yet, just from the conversation that I had with them. So because I questioned them a little bit, and I set up a buyer consultation with them. I took them through the whole buying process and how it does look like, and they realized they're literally 2 years away. And I told them it's fine. So we'll just build them up a little bit as time goes by. So it's very important for this strategic call to happen. There's no pressure on it. You don't have to do anything right away. I don't know how other agents go about it, but usually I do not apply any pressure on anybody when I'm having a conversation with you for the first time, because it's just a matter of understanding where you are. And then step 3, once we know what your needs are, and then we know your pre-approval, you know your budget per se. So we look at the neighborhood shortlist. Now we go into the must have and nice to have. This is important to understand, because sometimes, let's say for example, must have. I've had situations where my client, husband, wife, the wife is like, I have to have a kitchen island in my kitchen. Like if I don't have that, I don't care for it, And then we could have a husband who's like, I need to have my own office. I've had very, very interesting ones, where I have a client, we found her a really good home in Brampton, and she was not going to move into any home if it did not have an office on the main floor. Initially, she was like, I need my office to be facing the front of the house. I was like, okay, that's going to be hard. But eventually she came around, but the house that she found had to have an office. Once you get the clarity of this, it obviously sometimes it will make your search a little bit longer. Like you'll take a lot more time in the market, because if your must have is so unique, it makes it a little bit tricky. But you have to remember, if it's your first home, you don't want to focus so much on the nice to have. The nice to have, you can give it up a little bit and just kind of look at it in terms of price point. And this is what we typically come in. I come in and I break it down for you. So step 4. The offer strategy for your segment. So if you're buying a condo, your townhouse, your freehold, the way you approach this negotiations in each of these sectors is different. Today, the condo market, really good for you. If you're buying, like you have enough negotiation rooms, you have time, you have leverage as a buyer. If you are buying a freehold, it depends on the pocket that you're buying in, the micro market of where you're buying, because some freeholds still stand strong. Like they might not stand as strong as 2021 at the peak of the market, but they're still standing strong in the sense of there's maybe 2 or 3 other people who are interested in this type of home. So it just depends on the kind of property you're looking at. So you shop with a plan, not emotions and not pressure. The only time you'll feel pressure when you're shopping for homes is literally when you're not very well planned. You've not had a strategy call. You've not had a pre-approval. You've not gone through the process. That's literally the only time you feel like there's a lot of pressure. So I want to take you through some examples here. So let's look at some scenarios here. So I took 650 a starter condo. Right now, for 650 for a condo or a townhouse, let's say mainly a condo apartment, you'll get a really good condo apartment for 650 today. I mean, if you're looking at downtown, you're probably looking at either a 1+1 with parking at least. For a 2-bedroom, you might want to still go a little bit higher. But for a townhouse, you have to go like outside the Toronto to get a really good $650,000 home. But that's for another one. I want to go through the down payment process here, because if you're a first-time home buyer, your 5% of your first 500,000 plus 10% and the remaining, which ends up being the 40,000. This is the down payment. You can pay less than 20% as a first-time home buyer, and this is literally how it's broken down. A lot of times people think it's just 5% of the 650. It's not. If you're buying a property for 500,000, that's when it's just the 5%. But if it's slightly over this 500,000, it ends up being 5% of the 500,000, as I mentioned here, plus 10% of the difference. So 150K, 10% of this brings you to 40,000. So this is the amount, the down payment you need to buy a $650,000 home. So if you've saved up $40,000, remember, this is just a down payment. This is not including the closing cost. If you haven't watched any of my videos about the process of buying a home, I have one of those videos in my channel. Just go ahead and you'll find it in there, or maybe I might link it somewhere in here. If you want it, just put a comment and I'll actually send you the link for it. So the plan behind this, as a first-time home buyer, you hold it for 5 years while you pay down the mortgage, build the equity, and you grow some income from it. Obviously, you want to make sure the kind of property you're buying is in good condition. And is in good condition meaning it has the possibility of appreciating in a very good way. If you're buying just a home, let's say, for you to get something really good, you've been approved for $650,000, but now you end up buying something that's around, let's say, $400,000 in a location that's not that good, or you've not really looked into the grit of the building and maybe look at how much reserve fund they have in the account, or is how old the building is. So to have a good understanding of how the appreciation is going to be, because it's not just the purchase price you're buying. A lot of times it's the grit of the building that matters, that will tell you if your appreciation is going to be good. So you want to really pay attention to this type of stuff. Then you can upgrade or keep it as a rental if numbers or lenders allow it. So obviously, if you can keep it as a rental, is a really good option as a first-time home buyer. That means you just bought smart, because this is when you can now start using the HELOC to be able to buy another property, and you keep this as a rental, because you're just taking money out of the property. You won't be able to take 100% of the equity. You'll get probably 80%. 80% of the equity is what you'll be able to take out. It's not 100%. So if your house has an appreciation or has an equity of around 400,000, you're not taking 100% of the 400,000. You're taking 80% of the 400,000. So key takeaway here: buying earlier can convert time into equity. Renting does not. I'll get into this, the buying versus renting, because I know this might have triggered some of you, because it's not a bad thing to rent. It's actually pretty good to rent, depending on your plan and how you're going about it. I always encourage people, you could still rent, but do the numbers. Let the numbers help you with this. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So 20% when you're paying a property. But there's a myth behind this, because sometimes I could be in the gym, and a lot of times some people would ask me. I usually have my phone. I have this little Remax thing back there, and when I'm working out, some people see I'm with Remax and they ask me a question like, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying a home," and they don't know how the whole process, and then they go into this. I thought we have to have 20% down payment to buy a home, and I'm like, no, you don't really have to. And this is why I wanted to include this in here, because you do not need 20% down payment for most purchases under $1.5 million. And this 1.5 actually just was increased. That number increased, I think it was last year, because before it used to be 1 million, but now it has gone up to 1.5 million, which is a good thing. So if you're buying anything less, you can buy anything less than 20%. You can buy anything by putting down less than 20% down payment if the property is less than $1.5 million. So the Ontario rules is 5% for first 500,000, which you've gone through, plus 10%. So 500K minus 1.5, and that is the portion that you're now going to include to your down payment. So it's not going to equate to a full 20%. So this is a break that the Ontario government is really giving a lot of first-time home buyers, because the average price for a home right now has gone up to $1 million. In some areas, it is over $1 million. So this is the break that the government is giving some home buyers today. So 20% is required at 1.5 million plus, and for an insured mortgage as well. And some lender rules might apply with some of this requirements that when you're going into a mortgage broker, they will break this down for you. If you want to pay less than 20%, a lot of times they'll have to be insured. You'll have to pay some insurance behind it. So, and there's a breakdown for this. I'm not focusing so much on this. If you want to watch that, I have a video that I'm breaking this down very well. So the default insurance exists so you can enter sooner. The trade-off is the premium cost. So you really want to see if you can get in a little bit sooner, but obviously do it as per what you can do. That's the most important thing. So the smart move, do not drain your savings just to feel good about 20%. A lot of times people completely drain the whole 20%. I mentioned this. They completely just wipe out everything that they've saved up to buy this home. And a lot of times you're doing this just to save literally $100 a month. So you really want to have a good understanding of this. I'm really going to do a good breakdown of renting versus buying, and I'll include this topic in here so that I can actually really show you the numbers. But renting buys flexibility for sure, and good if you may move a lot sooner and you want that ability to be able to just do whatever you want and move across cities, countries. That's when renting does to you. But renting equals you pay housing cost with no principal pay down, So you just have to look at your whole scenario, your whole situation. What's important to you? What can you do? And what do you have? If you're able to buy and you're renting, now you have to look at the math. What's the longevity behind it? What's the trajectory behind it? So buying is high responsibility, but you build equity over time. Again, it sounds good. But again, once you have a good understanding of the numbers, you'll realize if buying is the right option for you. So do the apples to apples and compare a similar home, similar location, similar lifestyle. Then it will give you a good understanding. So rule of thumb, if you plan to stay 3 to 5 years, buying often wins if cash flow works. That is true. So 3 to 5 years is where you want to be. If you can stay even 7 years, I know 7 years is what people say, but if you can stay 7 years, it's even better. If you're buying today, particularly if you're buying today as a first-time home buyer, you're buying a condo. If your time frame is anything less than 3 years, don't do it. Just because you're going to lose all your money. You're definitely going to lose everything you're putting down to, because it's not going to appreciate significantly. Actually, I say for a condo, you want to be in between this, 5 years to 7 years if you're buying a condo. So just plan it out accordingly and you should be good. So obviously I'll just touch on this really quick. So the family planning, really, if kids are likely and you're buying your home for the first time, just consider a 2-bedroom, potential school zones, parks. That's if you're planning to be in that same area. If you're working at a specific location and you're just buying a condo at the beginning and husband and wife, and you eventually want to have kids, you could just buy a 2-bedroom condo or a 2-bedroom condo plus den, which will put you in a position where you don't have to rush even when you have a child. So smart buying in the beginning is also really good. So the let's say here, the resale matters, family friendly layouts tend to hold demand. So if you're buying a home with your own unique perspective of it, or you buy a home, I had a client who bought a home and they painted the whole thing green. I was like, come on now. And when it was time to sell, everybody was coming like, the unit was good. I know it's just painting, but everybody was commenting about it, and it just gave us a whole lot of a problem. But that's not a big deal. The big deal is when you buy in a home and you put tiles, or you just put a certain type of renovation to it that's very fixated to your own liking, and you completely eliminate the general buyers. That is what you don't want to. If kids are not the plan, prioritize lifestyle, walkability, commute, amenities. That's important. The location you are, your lifestyle, all these things matter. So avoid overbuying space you cannot afford just to feel future proof. This is the worst. If you're buying, a lot of men fall under this. You're buying for ego. You're buying to just have a big property, to say you have a big property, to feel like you're the, like last year I dealt with a client who was trying to sell the property, and they had two properties, and they didn't need to, actually no, they had three properties. They didn't need to buy the third property. They just bought it because they could, or they wanted to. And this is around 2021. And last year I was trying to sell that home for them. It depreciated from $1 million. I think they bought it for 1.1 million is what they bought it for. And we couldn't get offers at exactly even 790. I just saw it. It's now in the market for about 750. I think it's still not moving. So they bought extra whenever and they didn't really need to do that. So you want to be very smart about this. So flexibility wins. A strong location gives you options later. This is where I come in. I help a lot of my first time home buyers. A lot of times I always give you the advice, and you obviously have the last say. I will tell you like, hey, this location is this location is not good, and you have the final say, and once you move in there, I'll still be in there, even though I told you it's not the right place to go to and you really wanted it. I will not stop you because you're the one who wants the place. But when it's time to move out, you'll call me and I'll take you out of there and we'll move out. And this has happened as well. Like I had a client who moved into Hamilton. I just told him like, guys, this is not good. Absolutely. I don't know why you wanted it, but they did it because it was a lot cheaper. And literally a year and a half later, they called me and we had to sell it. So it's very important to look into these things. So your commute is very important. Closer to the core, usually higher price. If you're closer to downtown, even if you're in Mississauga, if you're closer to downtown Mississauga, the cost is always going to be higher. Adding a 10 to 30 minutes can unlock better value and better layouts. I always say for an extra 10 to 30 minutes, you could be saving yourself an extra 20,000 to literally 50,000. Yeah, we could break this down in a buyer consultation for you. Your commute budget is part of your housing budget. Yeah, obviously, because of gas and the time as well. It's very important because what people don't really consider is you're sitting on traffic for the longest time, and that amount of time you almost put it as part of your routine to keep stopping by, buying coffee, buying this dinner as you're driving, going home, and this cost a lot of times adds up. So I had to add in there. That one you have to really pay attention to. If remote hybrid, you may be able to buy more homes without destroying your life. Yeah, that's it's just smart buying. That's what that is. And be honest, a cheap home with a measurable commute is not a win. Absolutely. And this is just exactly like the example I just gave you of my client in Hamilton. They bought it because it's cheap, and the commute obviously worked for them. But it's just sometimes you want to think about. I always say, think about your exit plan. Let me say it this way. The story of the home you're buying is not going to be that much different from the time than the story of you selling it. If the story of the home you're buying is it's been in the market for, I don't know, 120 days, 120 days, everybody that's looking at it is complaining about some fixtures, the layout of the home. This story, not unless you change this layout, not unless you change significant things here. If you're just staying in this home for another 5 years, this story is not going to be different when it's time for you to sell. It's not magic. It's not going to be like miraculous. No. And no matter what the market is, this story will stay as well. So just keep that in mind. Always think about your exit. So I wanted to just add in this one in here, the job hopping and sometimes how this can affect you during that whole period of you waiting. So higher income equals easier saving plus stronger qualifications and more options. That's straightforward. So strategic job changes can raise salary faster than small annual raises. Lenders like to see stuff like this here. So be careful with big income type switches, salary plus commission, self-employed. A lot of times I'm on commission as well, or self-employed per se. A lot of times those self-employed people feel like because you don't have a salary, you don't have a track record of what you have, you feel like you might not be able to get qualified to buy a home. Yes, you can. You just have to be very well planned out. You have to be very strategic on how the money is coming in and how to distribute it. And a lot of lenders know how to break this down for people. So you shouldn't be worried so much about that. Lenders like stable, provable income history. That's why if you're in a salary home income, it's a lot easier. Sometimes people will look and they'll wonder, how did you afford this home and the income that you have? It's just the story behind it. Like your credit is good, the income has been coming in very consistently, you have enough savings. Lenders trust this type of homeowners. So if you're applying a major change, talk to a mortgage broker before you jump. A lot of times it's easier said than done, and this is why even if you're 2 years away from buying a home, a year, 3 years away, it's good to just connect with somebody like myself, connect with a mortgage broker, and just create that relationship as time goes by, because you might have questions, you might have things that you've seen online, things that you've seen in the news that you don't even know how to break it down. So it's always good to have somebody. It doesn't have to be me. It could be somebody that you know that you can continuously communicate with. It's a very important thing. So house hacking. This is if you're saving up to buy a home, so you can rent a room. Lifestyle allows you to reduce your monthly burn. So just to be able to get the money for the down payment per se. So look for legal basement suites, income potential where they're permitted. So consider a duplex, triplex if you can complete. If you can compete, rare but powerful. Like this is when you're looking for the type of home that you might want to buy. It will help you get some people. If you're okay with living with people, this is part of the reasons why you can get a duplex and get a home with a basement. Obviously, it's going to be pricier, but the way you can set the transaction, the way you can set your profile, you could submit an offer and say you're going to have income coming in, which is going to be rent, and it makes your case a lot stronger as well. Be realistic about landlord headaches, vacancies, and repair. So if you're going this route of buying a home and you know you're going to have tenants with you, just be realistic in terms of the headaches you're going to get with the tenants, or the expenditure you're going to spend on repairs and things like that. So look at it from a worst case scenario and let the numbers guide you. You definitely want everything to be done legally, because if it's not legal, then a tenant has a problem, the cops are called, you as the owner, the landlord, will be liable, and it's a headache. It's a headache. I've dealt with this with one of my clients. It's a headache. You don't want to deal with that. So a lot of times people feel like they're waiting on the rates. Let's look at this. If rates fall, more buyers qualify, competition increases. That is just a fact. It's the supply and demand. So right now, particularly at the top of the year, there's not so much going on in terms of buyers, but you will see traction coming up towards the end of February, March. Typically, that's when it happens, because the rates will have dropped, buyers will have seen what's going on, and the excitement comes in, and what that does, it creates a lot of competition, and that's when the bidding starts happening and the sellers now have the leverage. In a supply constrained market, prices can rise faster than payments improve. You can refinance a rate later, you cannot rewind a purchase price. Yeah, that's true. So whenever you're buying, you just have, a lot of times people just focus on the purchase price and they don't focus on the monthly payment. I always say to first time home buyer, you're not buying that price, the purchase price, you're buying your monthly payments. So approach it from that first and let the monthly payment, what can you afford on a monthly without feeling constrained? and what you can afford on a monthly, let that dictate the purchase price that you're going to accumulate, that you're going to be able to afford. So if you're able to afford a monthly of $4,000, what can $4,000 qualify you for as a couple or by yourself? And if $4,000 can only qualify you for 900,000, don't stretch it. Even if both of you can afford, let's say, 5,500, but 4,000 is what you can do. So you're buying 4,000, then you do the math from there. Buying only makes sense if today's payment is safe for your budget. That's exactly what I just explained to you there. So use a pre-approval plus rate hold so you act from strength and not panic. It's important to, if you're acting from panic, it just means you've not planned. You've just not planned. You've not planned anything. You've not gone through the rigorousness. You've just gone through the emotions of excitement. You've done a quick search on Google or on the TD Mortgage app, and you've seen that, I can buy a home for 900,000 with everything that I have. And then you go out there and you start searching for homes. You haven't had a buyer consultation, and you start rushing. You submit an offer, and before you know, your emotions are attached, because a lot of times people think they don't get emotionally attached. You do get emotionally attached, because you walk into the home and you start looking at the couch, where you're gonna put your TV, where you're gonna put your bed, how your kids are gonna run around, like all those things, and you get emotionally attached when the seller now understands, you really are in a rush, so they'll take advantage of that. So that is the panic, and that's where mistakes happen. So let's finish with, you want to make sure you buy smart. Set a payment ceiling. Do not max out your approval. That's exactly what I just mentioned there earlier. You do not want to max out your approval. You are approved for a certain number. It's good to just fall slightly under it, like even 10%. If you can fall even 20% under your approval, that's even much better. Keep cash reserves, repairs, job changes, life surprises. I always say hold on to about 3 to 6 months in reserves after you moved in. So don't use everything. I mean, a lot of times we'll use this money to buy all the furniture and everything. So just hold it on reserves. Budget total costs, mortgage, taxes, condo fees, insurance, utilities. Guys, watch the video that I just did on this. It's important. It's not just the mortgage that you're looking at. It's your taxes, the property tax, and it varies from city to city. So you have to look at that. The condo fees. Condo fees are important. They're not the same in all condominium buildings. Some can be 300, and it's gone up to 1,000. So you'll see a unit that has condo fees of $1,000, and the price is so much lower, and you get excited, but these condo fees are hurting your appreciation value, hurting your equity. So you're buying a home that you might as well just rent, honestly. Then insurance, utilities. Make sure you look at those numbers. So use data, not vibes. Comparables, inventory, days on market, price trends. These are things that dictate or tell you the value of the home you're about to purchase. And a lot of times, if you're buying, it's free to use a buyer agent like myself. So just use the skills of the buyer agent you're using, because a lot of times agents have done transactions. I've done over hundreds of transactions. So that's why I always advise first-time home buyers, use an agent. Just the biggest thing is find somebody you can trust, somebody who's credible, who can actually break these things down for you. It's going to stay with you for the long haul. Have an exit plan. I already mentioned this. Sell in 5 years, rent it out, or hold long-term. This exit plan is huge. If you don't have an exit plan and you're buying for the first time, you're hurting yourself. You're absolutely hurting yourself. But for now, that's it. I hope you found some value in this video. And if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me, the link is in the description below. Schedule a time where you and I can have a quick conversation, whether you're 7 days or 90 days away from buying a home, or even 2 years. Schedule a time. Let's have a conversation and let's see where it takes us. But until next time, have a good one. Thank you. Bye.